Hello, welcome back to the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project Ask an Elder series. I'm Sydney Burley. I'm a sophomore currently enrolled at Augusta University with a major in pre-nursing. My guest today is my grandmother, Ms. Barbara Burley. She was born June 15, 1946 in Louisiana and relocated to Beaumont, Texas in 1950. Her earlier years were formed by her family and church. She attends Blessed Sacrament Catholic School from 1st through 8th grade. She was a graduate of Charlton Pollard in the class of 1964. She attended Lamar State College for vocational nursing. After passing state boards, she worked as a staff LVN for several years after attending LU in nursing. For the past 48 years, she has worked in many areas of nursing, but she loves perioperative nursing. She's now retired doing volunteer work with her church and helping her grandson. She has also inspired her daughter and her granddaughter, me, in pursuing the nursing field. Now, Grandma, can you tell me about your first voting experience?
My first voting experience was back in 1966. I voted in the elections in the city because we didn't have a national election that year. The year that we had a national election, I wasn't old enough yet to vote. And that would have been for Lyndon Baines Johnson, who took place after President Kennedy was assassinated. And then he ran for office for himself for one term.
All right. Now, can you tell me about your best voting experience?
My best voting experience, I think, was when just learning about John F. Kennedy running for president, even though I didn't get a chance to vote for him, I was excited for him to run because back then we were still in what we called the Jim Crow environment back then, because Jim Crow South, because my father, who instilled in all of his kids that we had the right to vote. He had to pay poll tax in order to vote. He couldn't just go and vote. He had to pay a price, and also Black people in the South had to take literacy tests in order to be able to vote. So my biggest thing about voting was the fact that after the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was signed into law, that we all could get out and vote, and we didn't have to be discriminated against in voting, which to me was just wonderful.
That's great. Can you tell me about your worst voting experience now?
Really, I have never had a worst voting experience, because since I've been voting, when I first started voting, we could only vote in our own precinct, which in Beaumont, Texas, we have several, and I'm in precinct 63. So we had to go to a certain school or a certain place to vote. But now, since we have early voting, we can mail in vote. Senior citizens and disabled people in Texas can mail their votes in. And since I have an eye problem, what I do is I usually mail my vote in, because I can take my time with my magnifying glass and fill out my thing correctly, and then I can mail it in, or at this time, we can drop it in at the courthouse, because as you know, right now, we can only have one voting drop-off space in the state of Texas. That law came into effect in a couple of weeks ago. So I guess if I say worst, that would be my worst, because it can't go and just put it in the mailbox. If you want to trust the mail, you have to go, and they have several cities in this county that older people like myself, would not be able to really get their votes in if they don't have transportation.
So you can only drop it off at one place, the courthouse?
One place in the whole state of Texas, in each district, in each county, our governor decided that there would be only one place where we could actually drop off our votes. And many people have been dropping them off, and we have started early voting on the 13th of this month, and it has been tremendous. We have had so many people turn out to vote. The lines have been long, but they have been going pretty good, and everyone that I know has been going out to vote, and I've been pushing my friends, don't forget, we got to vote. And with Facebook and you have so many Facebook friends, you can tell them, I voted today. Did you vote? And keep encouraging people to vote, especially the young people, because some of my young nieces and nephews, for some reason, think that their vote doesn't count. But I keep telling them that it does, because I was here when we couldn't vote as freely as we can now. Now, our parents, our grandparents, they had to suffer and fight to get the right for us to vote, and we should take advantage of it.
Now, this is going to lead into that. Can you tell me why you think voting is so important, especially in this day and age?
I think voting is important because it gives you a feeling that you participate in your government. City elections, you can vote for the mayor, you can vote for your congressman, you can vote for the president, you can vote in all the elections that's going, because it impacts what happens in your city, in your ward. If you got dirty ditches, sewage bad, you have a person that you voted for that you can go to and tell them, we need this problem solved, we need this problem fixed. If you want my vote, you have to improve the area in order for me to keep voting for you.
All right. Now we're going to move into some of the current issues and challenges that we as African Americans face today with discrimination and prejudice. Can you tell me what it was like growing up in the deep segregated South?
Yes, ma'am, I sure can. I remember that when I was a kid, we had to ride the bus. We had to ride the back of the bus before Rosa Parks made her stand, and we had the bus boycotts. In Beaumont, Texas, we didn't have any Black bus drivers. We only had Caucasian bus drivers. There was a sign on the bus, and it started off in the middle of the bus. But if white people got on the bus and they didn't have enough seats in the section that was specified for them, all they would have to do was pick the sign up and move it farther back. So that meant that the Black people who were sitting in seats where the sign started had to get up and move to the back of the bus. And myself, I was allergic to the fumes from the bus. So most of the time, if I got on the bus, you could be sure that when I got off, I passed out. Many times I passed out from riding on the back of the bus. And also, things that these kids today take for granted, we could not take for granted. I was 20 years old before I could go and sit in Morgan and Lindsay, which was a store like Woolworths, where they had a lunch counter. Mm-hmm. We could not go. I was 20 years old before I was allowed to go and sit at the lunch counter to eat. And that was in 1966. Mm-hmm. That was the first time that I was allowed to go. And when we went to the courthouse, to a public facility, there was the bathroom that said Blacks only or white only. And if you crossed the line, you would be in trouble. You could get to jail for just drinking water out of the same fountain that a white person did. And when my kids grew up, they could go to the fair, is what we call the South Texas State Fair. When I was a kid, we only had one day to go to the fair. We went, what the white people called it, and I don't like to use this word, but I'm going to use it because that's what they said. Okay. It was a nigger day at the fair. That's how they referred to it in Beaumont, Texas, in the 40s and the 50s. And we didn't know any better. We had parade, the bands from the different high schools played, it was because we were so happy that we could even get to go to that one day. And that nowadays my kids, when they were growing up, they thought they needed to go to the fair every day, but we didn't have that privilege. There was so many things that I saw when I was growing up, and I watched the struggle. I watched on television the Bloody Monday, when John Lewis and Martin Luther King, all those people walk across that bridge, and we saw them being beaten with clubs, billy clubs that the police had, being tear gassed. I saw all of that. I know people who marched. We had marches here in Beaumont, Texas. Reverends from different churches got out and marched with us so that we could be allowed to go sit at a lunch counter, be allowed to go to Lamar University. When I went to Lamar the first time in 1971 to take my class for vocational nursing, they only had a certain quota of Black people that they would allow. We had 11 people of color in my class at that time, and that was the only allowed. You couldn't, any white person could go, but only they had a quota for Blacks. That's how many they would accept. And when my brother first started going to Lamar University, they didn't have that many people of color going to Lamar University before the 60s.
Okay, and how did those experiences shape you as the woman you are today?
It shaped me so that I know I would instruct my kids to get an education, learn as much as you can. And my father once told us that your word is your bond. That was one of the things he lived by. And he stressed education because he was only allowed to go to the 4th grade because when he was a kid, he was the oldest son, so he had to stop going to school and help his mom and dad because they were sharecroppers. And my grandparents, my father's parents, neither one learned how to read or write. But they insisted that their kids learn how to read or write. And my father and mother, when we were kids, they insisted that we go to school. They wasn't worried about us having a job, cutting grass or anything like that. They stressed education to advance ourselves, and that's what we did. Most of us, we finished high school, we went to college, got good jobs, and instilled in our children that the best way to change things is to get an education, learn all that you can. I love history. I love numbers. And every time someone asks me something in the family, they says, call Miss Burley because she'll remember. Because I can remember things that happened long ago. I'm good with dates, and I got that from my father.
Now, what do you think about the Black Lives Matter movement?
I support the Black Lives Matter movement. I do believe that all lives matter, but as we all can see from television, and I think I know it's been happening for years and years. The only difference is that everyone now has a cell phone, and most cell phones have cameras on them, so it's being recorded more. Mm-hmm. And it's showing now more about the treatment of Black people in not just the South, but all over the country. And so, yes, I do support Black Lives Matter. I think it's a good thing for the country to see what happens to young Black people, young men especially.
Now, do you see any correlation with the police brutality today and as you were growing up?
It was prevalent, but it was covered up more. The police, they do the same thing they're doing now. It's just that now it's more exposed to what it was when I was growing up. And when I was growing up, actually, we lived in what was called the south end of town. And at that particular time when I was growing up, they did have Black police officers in the neighborhood, patrolling the neighborhood. So we didn't get to see a whole lot of white police officers in our area unless you left this part of town and went somewhere else.
Now, when it comes to voting, what do you think about all the differences, all the different instances with voter suppression going on over the past years?
I don't like it, and that's why I preach to all my family and friends that we need to get out and vote. Exercise your right to vote. Our family, our our ancestors died. They fought, they got beat up. They did everything they could so that they could be allowed to vote. And now that we have the right to vote, we should, all of us, Black, white, brown, all of us should exercise our right to vote, our voice. Voting is your voice. It gives you a chance to say what you want and what you believe in. And your candidate, you have the right to let your candidate know what you want and what you expect from them when you vote for them.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays with voter suppression, they know a lot of people don't like to stand in long lines and wait, because some people can be waiting for up to 8 hours to vote because they only
Right,
have 10 machines working.
right.
So they just get out of line because they don't feel like it.
Yes, that's why I think they should open up more polling places. And I'm so grateful to the NFL for allowing their business places to be used as voting places for them to be able to set up machines so that we can vote. I'm grateful for them for that.
As a former nurse and as someone who's lost family members from COVID and contracted COVID herself and overcame the virus, how do you think the pandemic is being handled currently?
There are so many people that think wearing a mask is taking away their rights. It is not taking away your rights. It's trying to keep you and everyone else safe. I had a mask on, but the place that my sister was at, they didn't send her to the doctor's office with a mask. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to protect her, to protect the nurses in the doctor's office. And that's why I contracted it from her. And what I feel so bad about is that my nephew, her son, Johnny, not only did he lose his mom to COVID-19, 20 days later, he lost his dad to COVID-19 too. So COVID-19 has hit us, our family, pretty hard, and it's devastating. And I would love to see more people wearing masks, keeping their social distancing to try to decrease the amount of COVID. And with flu season coming now, it's going to be worse than it was before, because some people will not know if they have COVID or if they have the flu. They might think they have the flu and ignore the symptoms and then wound up with COVID. Mm-hmm. So protecting yourself and protecting others, I think, is very, very important. And I think that we should not take it lightly. It's a serious matter, and we should take it seriously, not just one section of the community, but all sections of the community.
Do you believe that the nation should be shut down?
I believe that certain things, areas should be shut down. We shouldn't be going, like the football games. I noticed that the footballs, when you're watching football, that there aren't that many people in the football stadiums, which is good. That's a good way to keep people from getting COVID. I think that all of the crowded areas where people are not wearing masks or breathing in out air and so close quarters is contributing to the COVID-19 epidemic.
Do you think kids should be sent back to schools?
I think it's the parents' choice. If it was my child, I would not want them going back to school. But that's, as we say, it's choice, pro-choice. So if the parents feel comfortable sending their kids back to school, then that's what they should do. But if my kids were in school right now, I would want them to be homeschooled and not back to school.
I'm being homeschooled by myself. I know the feeling.
Yes.
And Grandma, what gives you hope in life?
You all, my grandkids, give me hope, because I see you all doing so wonderfully, and I'm so proud of you all. And my little fella, my baby boy, he gives me hope because he's such a charmer. And my God gives, I hope, and I pray to God all the time that things will change. And I know that he listens to our prayers and that he has our best interests at heart, and that one day everything will be back to normal. And I say, thank you, Jesus, every day for blessing me to be able to be awake this morning and be healthy. Even though I did have COVID, thank you, I got well. And I think one of the reasons I got well is because I didn't have a lot of pre-existing conditions like some people have. And I've never smoked. That was another thing that I think kept me from being as sick as some people could have been. I've never smoked, and I drink very seldom. So I think that helped me to not be as sick as some other people and died.
And lastly, what advice would you give to a young Black woman like myself about to embark on life after college?
I think that you should enjoy your life, get a job that you love, but work hard and enjoy life. Take vacations, don't work all the time. Enjoy yourself. Go to Paris, Rome,
Yes.
for places to visit. Just enjoy life. And if you want to find a soulmate, find a soulmate and enjoy life with them. Have a couple of kids for great grandma to spoil.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, Grandma, well, thank you so much for doing this, taking time out of your day.
I have enjoyed it. I'd love to see your lovely face.
Thank you. I'd like to see your face also.
You did a wonderful job. I'm proud of
Thank you
you.
so much.
You're welcome. Love you.
This message has been brought to you by the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project.